You ever have that feeling where your mind just gets stuck on something? A worry, a memory, maybe a question that just won't go away. Well, let's dive into that. Let's really get into the hidden system behind why we keep thinking about the same things over and over. It always starts like this, doesn't it? Suddenly, out of nowhere, there it is again. That one specific thought, just popping up when you least expect it. And you've already been over it 100 times, right? You've analyzed it from every angle, but there it is, making its familiar return. It just feels like a track on repeat, and you're not even sure who's controlling the music anymore. So what is going on here? Why does this happen? The thing is, it keeps coming back, not because something new has happened, but because it never really went away to begin with. To really get this, we've got to start with the first big clue, and that's something called the open loop. Honestly, this idea is the foundation for this whole experience. An unfinished loop, well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a thought, or a problem, or an emotion that your brain hasn't stamped complete on yet. It's unresolved. The case file is still open. This is just such a simple, powerful way to put it. Because that thought isn't closed, your mind feels like it has to bring it back to your attention. It's as simple as this. What stays open returns. But not all open loops are created equal, right? Some are way more persistent than others. So let's look at why that is. What are the things that amplify these thoughts and really make them get stuck? Okay, so there are three key factors that basically act like amplifiers for these thoughts. First, you've got its emotional weight. Second is what we could call attention gravity, how much it pulls at your focus. And third, a good old-fashioned reinforcement loop. Let's break these down. All right, first up, emotion. Any thought that's carrying a strong feeling, like anxiety or regret or even excitement, it just has more power. That emotion acts like a giant neon sign for your brain, screaming, "Hey, this is important." And that makes it so much harder to just brush aside. Next, there is attention gravity. It's weird, but some thoughts just seem to have their own gravitational pull, don't they? They feel significant, even if they're not actually urgent. Your mind gets drawn to them because it feels like they hold the key to understanding something important about you or your life. And finally, you've got the reinforcement loop. And this one's just basic neuroscience. The more you walk down a certain mental path, the more worn in and easy to follow that path becomes. So literally, just thinking about the thought carves a little groove in your brain that makes it easier to think about it again. So we've got these powerful open loops floating around, but what actually calls them back to the front of our minds? Well, that brings us to the triggers. A lot of the time, it's the quiet moments. When your brain isn't totally occupied, like on your commute, or when you're trying to fall asleep, or even in the shower. That downtime is basically an open invitation. Or it could be some small, subtle, seemingly random reminder that just brings it all rushing back. Now, all of this can feel really frustrating, right? Kind of chaotic. But what if I told you this isn't a bug, it's a feature? What if it's actually a system and it has a purpose? Let's get into the hidden process that's going on behind the problem. The whole reason it feels so automatic and out of control is because you don't choose to have the thought, do you? It just appears. And that lack of conscious control is exactly what makes it feel like your own mind is working against you. And this right here, this is the core shift in perspective we need to have. Because while it feels random, automatic, and totally out of control, what it actually is a system. It's a process. Your mind isn't trying to annoy you. It is actively trying to resolve something. At the end of the day, this whole looping thing is just your brain's strategy for dealing with uncertainty and unprocessed emotion. It's desperately trying to find an answer to close that loop, even if it has no idea how. Which brings us to the final and honestly the most important piece of this whole puzzle. If this is a system that's trying to resolve something, then what's the real meaning behind it all? It really all comes down to this one simple truth. The repetition, the triggers, the emotional weight. It is all working towards one single goal. Your mind is trying, desperately, to close something it sees as open. So what needs closing? Well, it's everything we've just been talking about. It's those unanswered questions that are still hanging in the air. It's the emotional weight that you haven't fully dealt with. It's those fundamental, unfinished loops that are just demanding a conclusion. And this is the big revelation, the thing to remember when you find yourself stuck. That specific detail you're obsessing over, the little mental movie you keep playing on repeat, it was never really about that. No, it was always about what that thought represents. The uncertainty underneath it all, the emotion that hasn't been processed, the unresolved situation. That is what your mind is really trying to get you to finally look at. So the next time that thought comes back, instead of trying to push it away, maybe just ask a different question. Don't ask, why is this here again? Ask, what are you trying to tell me? What is it that truly needs to be closed?